Hello everybody, I'm Manakyn. I'm a small YouTube content creator and streamer. Normally on this channel you'll see me running from monsters while screaming my head off.
This game cannot get any worse.
Oh my god, it got so much worse!
But every once in a while I like to have a real talk with my viewers about everyday life and the problems that you face and how to deal with them. I started a rant series where I speak my thoughts completely unedited, and just like those videos, this video is going to be completely unedited with the exception of cutting out silences where I'm thinking. And today I wanted to talk about anxiety and how to deal with that, especially since anxiety is something I face fairly often, and it's actually something I'm facing right now. For any of you who've been on my stream, you know I'm facing a pretty dramatic change in my life right now. I've been looking for a job for a while, and recently I found one in San Diego, so I'm going to be moving to San Diego pretty soon. I live in Los Angeles, so it's only a 2-hour drive, but this is probably one of the biggest changes in my life so far. This is the first time ever I'm going to be completely alone. When I was growing up, I was lucky enough to have my father and my sister around, and even though we didn't always get along, I knew I could always ask them for help. When I went to college, I knew several friends already from high school who were going to the same college as me. Going to grad school, I already knew my advisor as well as several of my lab mates. But this is the first time I'm actually moving physically to a place where I know absolutely no one. Perhaps a lot of my viewers know that one of my biggest fears in life is to be alone.
What's my darkest fear? Oh, you guys are gonna use this against me. My darkest fear is to experience the best moments of my life alone.
So actually just a few hours ago, I was signing the lease for my new apartment, and wave after wave of anxiety just hit me like a spear to the chest. I started thinking about things like, what if I don't make any friends there? I'm currently single, so I started thinking about whether or not I'll ever find a girl I can spend the rest of my life with. What if I lose my job and lose my money and get kicked out of my apartment, and then as a result I have no money and I have also no way of going back home, and even my streaming and social media career just falling apart and all of my viewers leave me. I'm sure plenty of you have experienced something similar as well, but when you get hit with anxiety, sometimes your thoughts just get worse and worse and worse until you're imagining the absolute worst case scenario. I've also been fairly open with my viewers about the fact that when I was younger, I struggled with depression. So you can imagine that when your thoughts get dark, plus you have an inability to pull yourself out of it because you're incapable of thinking positive almost, you roll downhill really fast. So I've dealt with this for many years. I've spoken with therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists, as well as friends and teachers and professors and even, you know, students, people younger than me. And over time, I developed a method that works for me to help me pull myself out of this catastrophizing, anxious state. And I wanted to share that with you all today. Maybe it's just a little step-by-step guide using some tricks that I know. So I guess we'll start from the very beginning, which is when you find yourself in a dark mental state, where you're, thinking of the absolute worst possible scenario. In my case, it was being homeless and alone. It's really important, first of all, to forgive yourself for thinking so irrationally. I think we all agree that when we catastrophize, when we think that things will just get worse and worse and worse, it's not a very rational way of thinking. Obviously, things are going to go up and things are going to go down, but it's never just all downhill all the time. So yeah, we're thinking a little bit irrationally at this point. I want you to try to forgive yourself for doing that. One of the biggest problems I see when people try to pull themselves out of an anxious state is attempting to be rational too early. Often you hear the first step is try to think rationally, and I don't agree with that. Because you're anxious, you're scared, you're nervous, you're not going to be rational. And it's important to accept that not everyone's a computer that can always be logical. We're humans, and acknowledging that we're not thinking straight and accepting that as okay is a lot more helpful than trying and failing to be rational, because when you try and fail to be rational because you're so emotional, all that's going to do is add to your failures that you're already thinking about. Be nice to yourself, especially if you're being overly critical. You're probably being really harsh on yourself right now. So allow yourself to be imperfect for a little while. And when you feel exhausted and you're ready to become rational again, that's when you can move on to the second step. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes minutes or hours, but eventually I'm able to say, hey, I forgive myself for being in such a dark place. And now it's time to figure out how to get out of that. Which leads us to step 2, which is think about the best case scenario. And I'm not telling you to be rational. Try thinking about what will happen if everything goes right, if everything goes perfectly, if everything is working out exactly as you want. You know, you've just spent maybe an hour or two thinking about the worst case scenario, be fair to yourself. Often I find people who get really, really anxious all the time are the types of people who like to help others, but then they never actually use the advice for themselves. And I know because I'm one of them. And it's the same thing when you're trying to cheer people up. Often you try to tell people positive things when they're down, but if you're down right now, I think it's only fair to you that you tell yourself positive things as well. For me, I've been thinking a lot about being single for the rest of my life because I'm single. Ladies, call me. One of the big pieces of my life is playing volleyball, so I sometimes imagine myself going to the beach and not a single person wants to play with me. After I stopped freaking out, I promised myself I would try to think of the best possible scenario. And maybe the best possible scenario is I meet the love of my life, just like I do in all my video games.
Perhaps we could spend some time together.
She loves me! She loves me!
Maybe I'll do so well in my job that I get promoted to a senior manager. And maybe the YouTube or Twitch algorithm finally favors me for once and my channel becomes large enough where I can start pursuing my creative interests in their entirety. And maybe I meet the perfect partner for me in volleyball where I love practicing with him and we get a lot better and we go pro. You know, thinking about this puts a smile on my face, and I mean, it's not realistic. I doubt I'll ever go pro in volleyball, but I definitely want to get better, and allowing myself to think in such an extreme positive way is kind of just a nice balancing act to thinking in such an extreme negative way. It really puts me in a spot where I can start to think a little bit more reasonably about my life, which leads me to my third step, which is trying to draft a plan that will lead you in the direction of your best case scenario. Now, I didn't say leads you to your best case scenario, just in the similar direction. Because just as it's not realistic to think about the worst case scenario, it's also not realistic to think about the best case scenario. Often those things depend on a huge number of factors and luck and things that are well beyond your control. But you have control over some things. And this isn't meant to be a motivational video. I'm not trying to motivate you into working hard, even though you should. It's not the intention of the video. The intention is just to help you utilize the things that you can control. For example, I really want to meet a good beach volleyball partner, but I don't know anyone. So I've promised myself a few things, and these are some very small steps. First of all, I promised myself I'd come up with a list of exercises that I could do even if I'm really, really busy. Workout strategies that don't require me to work more than 30 minutes a day, because I know I'm going to be very busy when I first get there. And when I have more time, I can work out more. I still wanted to maintain working out and exercising a little bit so I can maintain my volleyball skills, which is fairly important for finding a good volleyball partner. And second, I asked my former coach if he knows people around that area. I don't know if he does. Some of them might be too low level for me, some of them might be too high level for me, but at the very least, I took a little bit of incentive or initiative to try to take some semblance of control in my life. Now, will that result in a good volleyball partner? Maybe not. Maybe I'll struggle to find a good volleyball partner. Maybe I'll have to go from partner to partner on a regular basis just because I can't find someone consistent. And that's okay. I have to accept the reality, but it's a lot better than never finding a volleyball partner and then losing all my volleyball skills and then realizing that I've wasted all my time on volleyball for nothing. I'm still giving myself opportunities, because even though worst case scenarios sometimes do happen, at the very least I can be glad that I took control of the things I can control, which is me thinking about the best case scenario and just devising a plan that could lead in that general direction. I don't like the idea of,
if you work hard, your dreams will come true.
That's mostly wishful thinking. If you work hard, you can do a reasonably good job pursuing the things you like. We should all try to be happy that we took our time to follow the direction that would make our dreams come true, even if it doesn't. I can't guarantee that anyone's dreams will come true, but what I can guarantee is that if you move in that direction, the scenario that you might be trapped in thinking or obsessively worrying about, that won't come true. You know, it actually takes a lot of dedication to ruin your own life. And I can guarantee you all that if you allow yourself just to think of good scenarios In addition to the bad ones you're thinking about probably a lot, that's gonna lead you to a happy place. So I hope that this kind of step-by-step procedure helps you whenever you're feeling really anxious. I know maybe it's a little bit abstract and vague, but I want you to try to utilize this, giving yourself the opportunity to be irrational and negative, then thinking as positive as you can go, and then taking steps towards that. Utilize that and try to make it work for you. And even if you don't know exactly what you want, that's okay. You just need to come up with some sort of concept, just something structural that might help you. Anything from I hope I can eat good food every night to maybe I hope I make one friend. So this wasn't exactly rambling thoughts as it was kind of thinking through my step-by-step process in dealing with anxiety. And I wonder how much of this video is actually for me trying to remind myself to use this process, because I have been feeling anxious quite a bit lately with the whole moving process and the changing jobs. But if you did get something of value out of this, please let me know down in the comments. There's nothing that makes me happier than knowing that I was able to give you something of value that can help improve your life. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Check out my gaming or voice acting streams if that's your thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.